Chapter 2, Part 6. The drive to Cedar Hollow was a descent into hell painted in shades of gray and screaming green. Rain fell in solid walls, turning the fire road Anthony navigated into a treacherous river of mud and sliding gravel. The rover, powerful as it was, fishtailed violently, headlights stabbing uselessly into the downpour. Angela clung to the door handle, the plastic case containing Robert's journal and Ben's evidence digging into her ribs. Each lurch, each sickening slide towards the steep drop-off hidden by the storm, mirrored the terror clawing at her throat. Megan.
Mom.
Pruning tonight. Faster. Angela yelled over the roar of the engine and the storm. I'm trying. Anthony snarled, wrestling the wheel, knuckles bone-white. His face was a mask of grim concentration, the earlier vulnerability burned away by adrenaline and dread. This road wasn't meant for this. Suddenly, twin spears of light pierced the murk behind them, high and aggressive. 2 sets. Then 3. Black SUVs, materializing like sharks through the rain curtain, gaining fast on the wider stretches. Eleanor's gardeners. Anthony hissed. He slammed the accelerator, the rover surging forward, tires screaming for purchase. Hold on. The chase was brutal, short-lived. The SUVs, lower and wider, handled the mud better. They closed the gap relentlessly. A sickening thud rocked the rover as the lead SUV rammed their rear bumper. Angela screamed, thrown forward against her seatbelt. The plastic case tumbled to the floor. They're hurting us, Anthony shouted, fighting the wheel as another bump sent them careening towards the steep embankment. Towards the clearing. He was right. The narrow track opened abruptly into a small, overgrown clearing dominated by the silhouette of Cedar Hollow. The abandoned research station loomed, a decaying log cabin grafted onto a larger, windowless structure of stained concrete, like a tumor on the wilderness. One dim light flickered weakly in a cabin window. The SUVs fanned out, blocking the only exit from the clearing. Doors flew open. Men in black tactical gear, faces obscured by balaclavas, poured out, moving with lethal efficiency, raising compact rifles. No! Angela cried, reaching for the door. Stay down, Anthony roared, throwing the rover into park and lunging across her, pinning her to the seat as gunfire erupted. Crack, crack, crack. Bullets starred the reinforced windshield, but didn't penetrate. They pinged off the bodywork. They're trying to disable us. Trap us. The cabin door burst open. Megan stood silhouetted, her face a mask of terror. She saw the rover, the armed men. Angela. One of the black-clad figures turned, raising his weapon towards the cabin door. No! Anthony bellowed, fumbling frantically in the glove compartment. He pulled out a heavy, snub-nosed pistol Angela hadn't known was there. Get to the back building. Now, Megan. Run. He kicked his door open, using it as cover, and fired 2 rapid shots towards the figure targeting Megan. Not to hit, but to distract. The man ducked. Megan vanished back inside, slamming the door. Angela, go. Anthony shoved her towards the passenger door facing away from the gunman. Through the trees. Get to the back entrance. I'll draw fire. Panic warred with instinct. Leaving him felt like betrayal. Staying meant death. Angela grabbed the plastic case, shoved the door open, and rolled out into the freezing mud. Bullets chewed the ground near her feet. She scrambled on hands and knees, then ran, low and weaving, towards the dark bulk of the concrete structure at the back of the cabin. A heavy, rusted metal door stood slightly ajar, the entrance Megan must have used. She plunged inside, slamming the door behind her. The sound of gunfire was muffled but terrifyingly close. She was in a narrow, concrete corridor smelling of damp, mildew, and something sharply chemical. Faint, flickering emergency lighting cast long, dancing shadows. She ran, following the corridor, the plastic case clutched like a life raft. The corridor opened into a vast, high-ceilinged space that stole her breath. It wasn't a cabin annex. It was a laboratory. Forgotten, decaying, but unmistakable. Banks of dead computer terminals lined one wall. Glass-fronted refrigeration units stood dark and empty. In the center, beneath a large, grimy skylight now lashed by rain, stood rows of heavy workbenches. And on those benches, Glass cylinders. Dozens of them, some shattered, others intact. Inside the intact ones, suspended in murky, yellowish fluid, were specimens. Not animals. Plants. Twisted, unnerving hybrids. Vines with thorns like scalpels. Ferns with unnervingly fleshy fronds. A grotesque orchid with petals resembling puckered, gray skin. Preserved in time, monstrous testaments to Robert Moretti's botanical obsession. Angela stumbled towards the nearest workbench, drawn by a large, leather-bound ledger lying open, covered in a patina of dust. Robert Moretti's handwriting, less frantic here, more meticulous, filled the pages. Sketches of the grotesque plants shared space with complex chemical formulas. Her eyes scanned an entry. Asterisk, cross-pollination batch number 17. Aconitum ferox, monkshood, plus digitalis purpurea, foxglove, plus synthetic compound XR7. Goal, accelerated biocardiotoxin for targeted agricultural pest control. Yield, lethal arrhythmia in mammalian trials. See subject log #17D. Unstable. Uncontrollable diffusion risk. Terminate project, asterisk. A cold dread seeped into Angela's bones. She flipped pages frantically. Found subject log #17D. Lists of animals. Then, chillingly, a subheading. Human analog trials, phase 0, unauthorized, YEM directive. A short list of codes, dates, and outcomes. Asterisk subject H1. Severe tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation. Expired. Asterisk subject H3. Complete cardiac arrest. Expired. Asterisk and then, a name that stopped her heart. Lena Mitchell, mild, transient palpitations. Discharged. Monitor. Her mother. Her mother had been an unauthorized test subject for Robert's monstrous plant toxin years ago. Was this the origin of Vitalix? Had Eleanor taken her father's failed, lethal bioweapon research and repackaged it as a heart drug? A blood-curdling scream ripped through the lab from the direction of the cabin, Megan's voice. Followed by the sickening thud of a door being kicked in. Angela whirled. Panic surged, cold and paralyzing. Then her gaze fell on a workbench near the rusted door she'd entered. Among scattered rusted tools lay a long, heavy object covered in a tarp. She yanked the tarp off. A flare gun. Old, corroded, but loaded. Next to it, a box of fat, red signal flares. Outside, the gunfire had stopped. An eerie silence descended, broken only by the drumming rain and the ragged sound of her own breathing. Heavy footsteps approached the lab door. One set. Precise. Unhurried. The heavy metal door groaned open. Eleanor Moretti stood framed in the doorway. Immaculate in a tailored, charcoal-gray pantsuit and knee-high leather boots, untouched by the mud or rain. Her blonde hair was perfect. Her glacial blue eyes swept the decaying lab with detached curiosity, then settled on Angela, huddled by the workbench with the flare gun hidden behind her back. A small, satisfied smile touched her lips. "Miss Mitchell," Eleanor said, her voice calm, carrying effortlessly in the cavernous space. "How resourceful. And how predictable. Harbor's end tenacity, I suppose. Always digging in the dirt." She took a step inside, her gaze flicking to the open ledger. Ah, Robert's folly. He lacked vision. Saw monsters where I saw its potential. She took another step, her boot heels clicking on the concrete. Where is my son? Hiding? Or has he finally proven useless? Angela's fingers tightened on the cold metal of the flare gun. Her mother's name in the ledger. Megan's scream. Ben's voice. Anthony's whispered plea. "Help me." The monstrous plants leered from their glass tombs. Salt. Stone. Fire. "He's done hiding," Angela said, her voice trembling but clear. She raised the flare gun, pointing it not at Eleanor, but at the rows of glass cylinders containing Robert's botanical abominations. "And so am I." Eleanor's smile didn't waver. "Put that down, child. You have no idea what you're playing with." "I know what you did," Angela spat, her thumb finding the heavy trigger. "To Ben. To Robert. To my mother. To everyone in Harbor's End. The pruning stops now." For the first time, a flicker of genuine annoyance crossed Eleanor's flawless face. "Sentiment. Always the downfall of the weak. She raised her hand. A subtle signal. Black-clad figures appeared in the doorway behind her, weapons raised. Disarm her. Gently. We still require her cooperation regarding Anthony. Angela didn't hesitate. She pulled the trigger. The flare gun bucked in her hands with a deafening whoosh crack. A blinding, incandescent red comet streaked across the lab. It slammed into a cluster of intact glass cylinders near the center workbench. The world exploded in fire and shattering glass. The chemical preservatives, decades old, volatile, ignited with a terrifying WHUMPH. Blue-white flames roared to life, hungrily engulfing the workbench, the monstrous plants, the ancient ledgers. Thick, acrid smoke billowed instantly, filling the high space. Eleanor stumbled back, a rare look of shock twisting her features as the wave of heat and smoke hit her. "Fool!" she shrieked, her composure shattered. "You reckless!" Chaos erupted. The black-clad figures recoiled from the intense heat and choking smoke. Alarms, dead for decades, suddenly shrieked to piercing, discordant life, powered by some forgotten backup system jolted awake by the fire. Through the smoke and flame, Angela saw Anthony. He burst through a side door she hadn't noticed, covered in mud, his face bloody from a cut above his eye, his eyes wide with terror and fury. He saw Angela, saw the spreading fire, saw Eleanor momentarily stunned. "Angela, this way!" He roared, gesturing frantically to the side door he'd come through, a smaller, less obvious exit. Angela didn't look back. She sprinted through the thickening smoke, towards Anthony, towards the promise of escape, the plastic case still miraculously clutched in one hand. She passed within feet of Eleanor, who was shouting orders at her disoriented security, her voice raw with fury. As Angela reached Anthony, he grabbed her arm, pulling her through the small door into a dark, narrow service tunnel. He slammed the door behind them, plunging them into near darkness, the roar of the fire and the shrieking alarms muffled but still terrifying. They ran, stumbling through the pitch-black tunnel, guided only by Anthony's desperate grip. The air was cold and damp, smelling of earth and rot. Behind them, through the heavy door, came the muffled sounds of chaos, Eleanor's furious commands, and the hungry crackle of the fire-consuming Robert Moretti's monstrous legacy. They burst out of the tunnel's end into the lashing rain and the dense, wet undergrowth at the back of the clearing. The rover was visible through the trees, miraculously untouched, the black SUVs abandoned near the now fiercely burning lab building, their occupants battling the blaze or searching frantically. Anthony didn't stop. He half-dragged, half-carried Angela through the mud and ferns towards the rover. He shoved her inside, scrambled into the driver's seat, and slammed the accelerator before his door was even closed. The rover fishtailed wildly, then found traction, tearing away from Cedar Hollow, away from the fire, away from Eleanor's vengeance, leaving behind a pyre of secrets and the echoing shriek of alarms swallowed by the storm. In the passenger seat, gasping, shivering, her clothes smudged with soot and smelling of smoke and chemicals, Angela looked at Anthony. His face was grim, etched with exhaustion and pain, his knuckles white on the wheel. He met her gaze for a split second, his blue eyes reflecting the hell they'd just escaped and the long, dark road ahead. No words, just the shared, shuddering breath of survivors, the plastic case of burning truths between them, and the ghost of Robert Moretti's final, damning words hanging in the smoky air. Monsters aren't born in the dark. They're cultivated in petri dishes by those who forgot how to see the light. The refinement was over. The rebellion had begun in fire. And Eleanor Moretti's perfect garden was burning.